Kia ora, All Saints. It is so good to be in house churches again. This is actually our final house church for the year. It's such a great opportunity to just dig in deeper with one another. And this year, I hope you have found great life out of your house churches. The stories we're hearing back about some of the house churches says that these are places that are just full of life, full of conversation, full of deepening of faith, and full of exactly what church is meant to be. So good on you for continuing to meet, gathering in your house church, and I hope today is that you can just be refreshed again as you meet. Now, from now on in, at All Saints, we will be doing 2 services every Sunday through to Christmas. And so come at either 9 o'clock or 10:30 and come and join in the worship and the preparation as we work our way through Advent, preparing for Jesus to come at Christmas. Now, hopefully this week you have received a news sheet if you in your emails. If you haven't, you can always sign up on our website. But Adam De Jong is now doing our communications role, and he is doing such a fantastic job. So hopefully you're getting all the updates that you need there. A couple of other things just to be aware of. New wine, 30th of November is the cut-off for early bird registration for new wine. So we're taking a good group from this parish. We're hoping to camp together. We're hoping to do some activities together. We're hoping to have a full-on barbecue on one of the evenings so that everyone who's there can come on in. People can travel up if they want just for the day, just to come enjoy the barbecue. But register. I know there's some families already that are signing in and signed up and ready to go. Some are staying on site, some are staying off site. Just if you can get there, that would be awesome. It's going to be a great time, a really encouraging space for all of our ministry throughout the rest of the year. The second thing is Christmas services are obviously coming up. We have 4 different offerings this year for you. We have a carols night, we have a family's Christmas on Christmas Eve, we have a midnight mass at Christmas Eve, and we have a Christmas Day service. So check those out, and remember, who are you inviting to be part of those events? Part of hearing the hope for the world that came in Jesus Christ. And so we're really looking forward to welcoming heaps of people into our parish over the Christmas season and over Advent, and hopefully you too are looking to who you can invite to be part of that. In fact, that leads really nicely into our talk today, our Christ the King Sunday sermon. And Christ the King Sunday really is the week before Advent. It's a day when we celebrate that Jesus is King of our lives, and we remember and we choose again to put him in the forefront and to follow him. In the office this week, we were talking about some of the traditions about Christ the King Sunday. And one of them, which you may have heard, you may not have, but one of them, they put a consecrated wafer into what they call a monstrance. And a monstrance is this kind of pole with it looks like a sun with like rays coming out everywhere. And the point is they march this down streets and down the aisle and all sorts of things in some of the more traditional churches. And it's to recognize the centrality of Jesus and give him all of our devotion and adoration. It's the real, high tradition of Christ the King Sunday. And I thought, that's interesting, right? Like, Christ the King Sunday is all about revealing who Jesus is. And so my hope today is that Jesus is again revealed for you and revealed as King of your life and King of all of our things and what we do on this planet. So today's passage is in Luke. It's Luke 23. And if you have not read it yet, then I'd recommend you pause the video, have a read, and then come back and you won't have missed anything. So if you're going to do that, pause it right now. Well, hopefully you have read the passage. It's a passage that we would normally read in Easter because, of course, Jesus is being killed. And they say that your character is revealed when you're under adversity. So Jesus being killed, I'm sure, is a big adversity, and hopefully we will certainly see some of his character. So I thought we'd just get into it and just I've got 3 points, and then we'll do a bit of a conclusion at the end, and we'll see where this takes us. And maybe you want to pray for one another, and pray for revelation about who Jesus is as you go or afterwards. So first and foremost, Jesus in this passage is the forgiver. The other day I was turning out of Moxham Ave onto Coupe Street. It's just down here by the Mormon Church, if you know All Saints well. And there's bus stops on one side, and I'm sitting at the stop sign on Moxham Ave, and I'm really in no hurry. I'm off to Kindy to drop Leon off. And so this bus comes along, and he's really kind, and he stops for me. But then these cars on the other side come the other way. So I kind of wave him on, and I'm sitting there and I'm just waiting for traffic, and I'm in no hurry. There's heaps of cars lined up behind this bus. So I just think, well, I'll come through, and then I'll find a spot. And there's always spots. It's not a problem. Well, in the middle of this, I kind of am not focused. I'm just sitting there on the brake, hoping. And I'm not focused on kind of what's going on. I'm hoping these cars just pass by, sort of looking down the road, is there going to be a gap? Anyway, I look back, and all of a sudden I see this car has stopped to let me through. And they're just sitting there, and there's this pile of cars, and I'm thinking, oh, crap. Now, and then there's a gap the other way, so I'm like, oh, well, I better kind of take this, and I sort of take the gap, and I wave to the lady as to say, thank you very much for letting me in. And I look up, and I look over to this woman, and she just throws her hands up like this. She's like, and I'm not really sure what came out of her mouth. I can't do lip reading that well, but I assume it wasn't very positive towards me. I think possibly she'd been sitting there a wee bit of a long time. And anyway, the point of the story was I get on the other side of the road, and I find myself just sitting in the confines of my car, and I say to myself, well, if you'd just followed the road rules, we wouldn't be in this situation with you angry at me. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. Fascinating little point. Why did I get so angry about someone just letting me into traffic? Now, Jesus here is crucified on the cross, and he turns to his Father and prays in this time, and he says, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. He, in fact, is modelling his own words from the Sermon on the Mount, where he says in Matthew 5:44 and 45, he says, I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. Jesus is living and talking about forgiveness while also in the moment of forgiveness for the entire world. He's hanging there on the cross, helpless, but forgiving people all the same, asking his Father to forgive those who are the very people that are killing him. And man, I just pray that my heart would be like this. My heart and me would be someone who forgives my enemy, the one who's killing me. That what a heart. What a reveal of character of who Jesus is. I was thinking to myself, man, that moment when I just kind of get angry because someone waved me through and then gets angry at me because I kind of wasn't concentrating. I thought, man, if only I had a more forgiving heart in that moment. But this reveals a character trait of Jesus. Jesus truly is the example of a forgiver. He truly is that person. The second thing I noticed about this passage is Jesus is known as an innocent person. Now, the other day I was sitting in supervision, and we have supervision as priests where we go and we talk to someone else about kind of what's going on. It's a real confidential space. It's a space that it's about debriefing sort of ministry and what's happening and working out what's kind of happening. Now, I was talking about all the changes that are happening around me, and most of these are in AYM. And I was talking about how I was feeling a bit unsettled by it all and the reality of what it meant. And there was a significant moment in that conversation, and I'm sure you will recognize these moments. I'm sure you've had them. But my supervisor turned to me and said, something that I just knew meant she had seen exactly what I was saying. She saw my heart. She saw what I was trying to do in the moment. She just understood me, and she got what was happening. Now, I think in this passage, I don't think many people saw who Jesus really was in the moment. They didn't see the true him. I mean, the soldiers, they're sitting at the foot of the cross. They're acting as if it's just another criminal hanging there, not caring, and they're just casting lots for the clothes, as they were entitled to do in these moments, apparently. And the leaders are sitting there, and the people are watching, and they're mocking Jesus. I mean, it says in Luke 23:35, it says, the people stood watching, and rulers even sneered at him. The rulers, bite back at him, and they say to him, he saved others, let him save himself if he's God Messiah, the chosen one. It's sort of a sarcastic kind of remark that's thrown out by them, he says he's the Messiah, then he should save himself. And then the soldiers join in. The soldiers also came up and mocked him. They offered him wine vinegar and said, if you are the Messiah, then save yourself. I mean, the notice above his head is partly mocking. The notice written above him read, this is the King of the Jews. It was the idea of what he was being crucified for. And then on top of this, so we've had the leaders, we've had the soldiers, we've had the people, and now we've had the sign, and now we even have the criminals that are hanging next to him. So one of the criminals who hang there hurled insults at him. Aren't you the Messiah? Aren't you the one who can save everybody? Well, save yourself and us. Now, if you know your Bible well, a lot of this might be familiar to you. If you've read Psalm 22, you will recognize some of the language here. In Psalm 22, it says, all who see me mock me. They hurl insults, shaking their heads. He trusts in the Lord, they say. Let the Lord rescue him. Let him deliver him, since he delights in him. Or further down in Psalm 22, it says, all my bones are on display. People stare and gloat over me. They divide my clothes among them, and they cast lots for my garments. These people don't see who Jesus is in this moment. But one person does. The other criminal hanging on the other side of Jesus identifies that Jesus is different. He starts to see who he is. And he says in Luke 23, the other criminal rebuked his friend hanging on the other side. Don't you fear God, he said, since you are under the same sentence. You're hanging on a cross, the same sentence. But we, as he's referring to him and his friend hanging over there, we're punished justly for what we are getting, what our deeds deserve. But this man, he's done nothing wrong. For whatever reason, this criminal sees through the mockery and the insults and the ironic message above Jesus' head, and he sees Jesus as king. Innocent for what he was accused of, but taking the fall anyway. Reveals a big lot about who Jesus is. Even though he was innocent, he took it willingly on himself that he would forgive us. And my third part about Jesus is Jesus finds himself again amongst sinners. Now, I come from Christchurch, and you may well know Christchurch has its own stereotypes. It's known to be racist, it's known to be predominantly white, and it's known to be middle class. Now, Wellington has some of its own stereotypes. It's got boxes of being very liberal, of being very unusual, and very left-leaning often. And when I first moved from Christchurch, I was sitting with a friend in a cafe in the middle of Wellington. I'd moved here not 3 months ago, and this friend had moved here a wee while before me. Me and him did youth work together down in Christchurch, and I believe many people in this church might know him. Anyway, he moved up here to plant a church. So I was sitting there having coffee with him. We were chatting about how the move's gone, what's happened, and I said to him, how are you finding Wellington? And the question really came from my heart, because I was struggling to feel like this is a place that suited me. I felt very out of place. It was very different from Christchurch. I wasn't thinking or believing most of the things that the young adults around me thought and believed. But he turns to me and he says, I feel like this place, these are my people. He kind of got on with them. He knew it. He fitted in. It was part of his thing. And I was struggling with this sense of moving from Christchurch and am I just completely different to all these Wellingtonians? Now, when I see Jesus hanging out with sinners in the Bible, I think this is the sense I kind of get. He kind of looks around, he kind of sees them, and he kind of goes, I feel like these are my people. These are the people that I want to be with. I mean, he shows this all the way through his ministry. He would hang out with sinners and criminals, and he even says in Mark 2, he says, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I've not come to call the righteous, but sinners. He wants to hang out with them. These are his people. And once again, at his death, he shows the same thing. I mean, he's being crucified among criminals, among sinners. The key point here is not just that Jesus hangs out with sinners, though. It is the welcome into the kingdom that he gives them. I said before, this thief kind of sees him. He recognizes Jesus and sees him as king. And so he pleads to him. He says, in the next line, he says, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. He's pleading with him to be in part of his kingdom. He sees Jesus as king. He understands maybe a little bit of who he is, and he just wants to be into this kingdom. Now, that's great. I think everyone would want to be part of something. But the shocking bit is Jesus' reply. This is a criminal, a sinner, a recognized person who, come today, you will be with me in paradise. Now, paradise is a reference to the Garden of Eden. So we look back at the Garden of Eden. This is a place where God reigned, where God was present and humanity was present. It's some sort of heavenly kind of idea. Today, you will be with me in paradise. Because Jesus not only hangs out with sinners, even on his death, he is still welcoming people into his kingdom. So Jesus the forgiver, Jesus the innocent and yet willingly died for us. And Jesus welcomes sinners into his kingdom. And so as we kind of try and land this, and we're looking at this passage and we're figuring out who Jesus is, I said before, adversity reveals character, and Jesus truly shows us who he is in being put to death. My hope for us together is that we capture that this is the Jesus we follow as King. This is a bit of who he is. Jesus is the forgiver. He forgives criminals that are being crucified next to him, and he forgives us. And then he also calls us to forgive our enemies. My hope today is that we can live into that every day. For instance, who do you need to forgive today? Jesus is the innocent. He is blameless, and we're not worthy of any of this that he offers us, and yet he sacrifices himself for the sake of others. He willingly lays down his life for his friends. Many mock him and don't see who he really is, but he does that anyway. He does it anyway. May we too be people who lay down our lives for our friends, even if they mock or don't understand. And thirdly, Jesus is amongst sinners. He hangs out with and engages with those that are seen as not worthy to hang out with. He not only does that, but he then welcomes them into his kingdom. He says, today you will be with me in paradise. And so may we too be people that welcome sinners into Jesus' kingdom. Today is Christ the King Sunday, and this is the King we follow. This is him. This is his character. This is what he does. And then he says to us, go and do likewise. And so, Lord Jesus, we ask that you continue to reveal your character to us. Help us to understand more of who you are. Be with us and encourage us as we try to live into being a disciple of yours. Help us to live into forgiveness, to live into holiness, and to orientate our lives to be with sinners. Send us your Spirit to lead and guide us in all of this and encourage us along the way. Bless us this week and forevermore. Amen.